Good morning, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm just going to wait for you guys to tune in. Good morning, everyone. Come on in. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If this is your first time, definitely comment so I know where you are from. Morning, Kensman Official, Lindy, good morning. Good morning, Luca on YouTube, Official Youngins, good morning. Salicious, good morning. Good morning, Abo Gabrielle Monday, good morning. Temi, good morning. Lindy says you look beautiful. Thank you so much. Aveoma, good morning from Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta too. Good morning. All right, good morning, everyone. Those of you in Florida, I hope you're staying safe. I can't believe we have another hurricane coming to Florida just 2 weeks after the first one. So just praying that, everyone is safe and, there's not too much damage this time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration attorney and I represent clients with humanitarian-based cases, family-based immigration as well, and naturalization. Humanitarian cases that we handle are VAWA cases, T cases, U visas, of course, all family cases, and, anything related to your naturalization, or waivers or, notice of intent to deny, motion to reopen or reconsider, all of those we handle. Our phone number here is 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. The number is in the ticker, and if you're on Instagram, it's in my profile. So if you're joining this Instagram after you finish this live, it's right there in the profile, so you can see it. Davis, good morning. How are you? Arnold Weeks, good morning on Facebook. Tamika says, I came here on an H-2B work program and they never had a job for me, giving me the runaround on the visa. And the visa is almost up. What can I do? Asking for a friend. Tamika, I would like to speak with you to kind of understand what exactly happened. It sounds like you have some trafficking going on. But we have to show it's for the purpose of labor and basically, screen you to learn a little bit more to see, how we can help you if that's a path that might be available to you. So you can always call or ask your friend to call to schedule a consultation. Someone is asking, how long does it take to get a resident permit in case you're married to an active duty military officer? Well, if you're filing an adjustment of status in the U.S., the timeline doesn't change. It's kind of the same timeline. This is different if you're in the country with, we've had a client who was outside of the United States. She luckily had not overstayed her time in the U.S. And the person was basically, had to go to Germany, like the active duty, officer, and she moved there with him, but they were in Germany able to basically do her consular processing in like a month or less than that, because they knew that, he would be reassigned. And so they had to make urgent pushes so that she could also leave the country with him. But in the US, the timeline would be the same. Today, I want to talk a little bit about VAWA because I've been seeing my comments, like, people asking, about what kinds of abuse will fall under VAWA. Let me kind of go over that. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, or if this is your first time hearing about VAWA, VAWA is Violence Against Women's Act. It's an act that allows U.S. citizens, not U.S. citizens, spouses of U.S. citizens or green card holders, or children of U.S. citizens or green card holders, or parents of U.S. citizens, if the U.S. citizens over the age of 21 get a 10-year green card if they experience abuse. I mean, obviously there are more nuanced examples of who qualifies for VAWA, but I just specifically want to talk about the abuse component of it. So people, typically ask, with a VAWA case, is it only physical abuse? What if I don't have any evidence of physical abuse? And so in our experience and with VAWA cases, abuse is not always physical, and oftentimes it's not even physical. A lot of times, abuse can be psychological, it can be emotional or mental abuse or verbal abuse, it could even be abuse of the legal system, sexual abuse, financial abuse. And, just kind of go over like some examples, of what would constitute these types of abuse, and the mental abuse, just think of things that affect the emotional mindset or the emotional state of a person. If someone is, and so a lot of times you'll find that mental, emotional go hand in hand with verbal, because, as I'm sure you guys have heard, a tongue or is like a sword or is it like a bullet? I don't know which one of the phrases they use, but like, certain things that you say to certain people can really affect them. Like, you talking about, someone's physical appearance, or, talking about their ability in the bedroom, or talking about who they are as parents or what they look like. These are all things that can lead to depression for someone, and affect them from a mental and emotional standpoint. Or sometimes you have someone who's gaslighting you, manipulating you mentally, where they tell you, and this goes more into the psychological aspect, like, if you leave me, I'm gonna basically off myself, so things like that. Even though they're not physical, the impact is is more long lasting than just, let me not say just, because abuse is truly terrible, than, say physical abuse. And then of course there's physical abuse where someone is physically abusive to you, meaning by stroking you or hitting you or pushing you or throwing something at you, or you have people that put you in apprehension of physical harm, like sometimes you can be in a relationship with someone and, maybe the person, overpowers you by their physical attributes, or, they're just aggressive. They punch walls, break glasses, throw things, smash things, so usually those put you in apprehension of battery or assault, that the person is going to go from punching those walls to punching you. So in a sense, that is psychological and physical. Or, if you're in a relationship, you have insurance, you have health insurance, your spouse is sick, and your spouse needs to see the doctor, and you withhold them from seeing the doctor. You will withhold giving them insurance because you don't want your insurance coverage to go up. You leave the house, and you don't have the person doesn't have any way to contact you. They don't have any way to provide for themselves, with food, or anything like that. I mean, we've had horrific cases of physical abuse that didn't necessarily relate to someone like punching someone in the face. You have scenarios where the person, basically shut off the heating, in the household, for the spouse and the child and their children, and left and went to stay in a hotel just as a way to punish the spouse. So that is physical abuse, because obviously that child or the children or the spouse could catch pneumonia. So there are many things that constitute abuse. Abuse of the legal system is understanding how the legal system works and using it to manipulate you or mess with your mind as far as what they're going to do, or them sending a letter to USCIS, I want to withdraw my case, and then withdrawing, and then going back to USCIS and saying, no, I changed my mind, I was just upset. So all of those things are forms of abuse that can cause PTSD and trauma to a person. And then of course, sexual abuse would of course include being raped, being forced to be intimate. A lot of people feel that they have autonomy over their spouse's body because they're married, but they don't. So there is such a thing as marital rape when you force somebody who has said no to be intimate, or threaten them that if they don't do this, if they don't sleep with you, I'm going to withdraw your petition. If you don't do this, I'm not going to give you money to eat. If you don't do this, this is all a form of intimate partner abuse. So there are just so many different ways in which to show abuse. And I know oftentimes people ask, well, I don't have any physical evidence of that. And truth be told, very many people are not thinking, oh, my spouse is doing all this to me. Let me get on my camera and record stuff, or let me, document stuff, because just many people are not thinking about that. And so in those cases, and for those people that say, how can I show you SCIS, that this is what is happening, because I don't have any evidence. At our firm, of course, we've been successful doing this just because we've done so many of these, that we do have arguments about the dynamics of an abuser and a victim, and the power and control. Sometimes USCIS would crack us up when they say, oh, we don't have enough evidence. You guys don't have a joint bank account. You don't have this. We don't have, pictures of you guys doing this or that. And, we go back to USCIS and say, like, seriously think about the question that you're asking. If you are being abused, you literally have no control of what your abuser allows you to have. So sometimes you don't have the evidence because your abuser knows the legal system and is going to ensure that they don't give you the paperwork, they don't give you what it is that you need to get yourself together, or including filing for you. So a lot of times, or oftentimes, victims are not going to have a lot of evidence unless it's evidence that they gathered like in happy times, like when things were good. With them and their spouses. But sometimes you can enter a marriage and immediately you move in, the person goes from Mr. Jackal to Miss Hyde, or whatever. So, so oftentimes what is, someone said, oh, she's not reading comments. Well, I'll get to comments, in a second. I'm just, talking about this just because I read a lot of these questions this week. So, in cases like that, your personal statement is really important, and how compelling it is. For the initial stage of VAWA, there generally is no interview. So it is really important that when that application is in front of an officer, they're able to see you as a human being. And they're able to see and say, wow, Jane Doe, or Jack went through so much, and it's oozing from that personal statement, what it is that you experienced. So, that, you can also send like affidavits, from people, who know you, and who you've confided in, as to what you've been through. And sometimes when you can, it's always good to get a psychological evaluation, so it's not a requirement. And we have very many cases and have been approved without one. But if you can, it's always good. And this is not just because of your case, but when you've gone through something traumatic like that, it's always good to talk it out with someone. And oftentimes, a lot of clients, the first time they're actually getting out a lot of what has happened is with us as attorneys, or as the firm, because, depending on their culture or where they're from, especially for the men, there's a lot of, pride that comes with, being a man and, one's manhood, and for men, it's like, how can I acknowledge that this happened to me? And, coming from, certain parts of the world, the Caribbeans, Africans, which are, a good chunk of our demographics, it is, where they feel like it's a sign of weakness, that they allow this to happen. But, like I always tell people, it's a no judgment zone. Like, there's nothing that you can ever tell us that shocks us, that these things, happen. But the important thing is that USCIS knows how it affected you. So really, those are the kinds of abuse. And that's, the way that You can basically have other types of abuse and how you can present that to USCIS. And, they're looking at any credible evidence. So if your statement is very detailed, down to the details of your good faith relationship, they will make a positive decision in your case. Okay, all of you harassing me about reading questions. Let me get to the questions. Let's see what's up. Everyone is all up in a bunch about me not answering questions. Guys, sometimes I just want to talk about a topic first before I answer questions. Let me see how far back I can scroll. Someone is asking me to talk about EB1 and EB2. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't handle those cases, so there's no point of me talking about it. Someone says, do you still have to pay after paying $675 for the I-130? Not sure I understand the question. Do you still have to pay what? Are you talking about to USCIS? Are you doing an adjustment of status? Because that's just for the I-130. But as I'm sure you know, an I-130 doesn't get you a green card. So depending on what kind of application you have, there will be other fees that would need to be paid to USCIS. Yes. Can my grandmother, who is now a citizen but is 84 years old and not working, file for her daughter and granddaughter to come to the United States? I mean, she's 84. So technically she can, but we also have to recognize her advanced age. And I say that to say if she's 84, I'm going to assume that she has a child that is over the age of 21. So let's just use this example and say, let's assume that all her children are over the age of 21. When you're looking at the visa bulletin, when you have a child that's over 21, they're not considered an immediate relative. So what that means is that they have to wait, for a visa to be available. I don't have it offhand because I don't have the chart with me, but sometimes the timelines can vary from anywhere from like 7 to 10 years, before even availability comes. And then when that happens, you're looking at a revocation. If, let's say, it happened midway while they approved her, and then seeing if or how or who's eligible for substitution. So technically she can, but one thing you have to be concerned about is just the average life of a person. 10 years from now, she'll be 94. I mean, God willing, she'll be alive. But these are some things to take into consideration. As far as her not working, that wouldn't be a problem if she's alive and she's well, because you can have a joint sponsor who's a U.S. citizen or a 10-year green card holder, do the joint sponsorship. Okay. All right, let's see what other questions. Let me take some questions on YouTube. Ngozi says, I want to know how long it takes to get a green card after submitting your medicals under VAWA. It's different for everyone. It depends on your field office. It depends on the officer. Sometimes we see 30 days. Sometimes we see 60 days. Sometimes we see 90 days. Sometimes we see 6 months. If you've not received anything in 6 months, we definitely want to do an inquiry to know why you've not gotten anything. But it's really hard, like when you guys ask those types of questions, because we don't know, because it depends on who the officer is and it depends on your field office. Every officer has their own caseload and process their own cases differently. So we can only just kind of tell you an average from like what we see, because there's no like published timeline that they're supposed to go by, meaning the officers don't have a published timeline for that. So someone on Instagram is saying, good morning, attorney, how long does USCIS take to respond to a request for evidence through adjustment of status? So the answer is the same as the other one I gave, just really depends on the officer. Okay. I received my travel permit and work permit renewal through VAWA last month. Congrats. Yesterday, when I checked the case out for my I-360, changed to new card being produced. Am I confused? No, you're not confused. Congratulations, Milton. It means that you've been approved for your VAWA case. So even though you filed for a renewal of your travel and work permit, you filed that through your adjustment of status attached to your VAWA case. But typically, with your VAWA application, your I-360, if you did select employment authorization, if approved, then that means you will get one if approved. But it's weird though that with 360s, which is VAWA, which is a VAWA application, the work permit is usually produced before the approval letter. So I suspect that if you got that yesterday, today you will check and you'll see the approval, because they usually will post that the next day. So congratulations, that's really good news for you. Arnold says, Mr. Hicha, good morning. I'd really, really love to talk to you. I called to talk to you, but they told me 2 months. Arnold, we have 5 reputable lawyers here at my firm. I'm not the only one here. I truly wish I could speak with everyone, but as you're human, I'm human as well. And I imagine you can speak to like 1,000 people, at the same time. So, we just have to go based on what's on the calendar and the appointment schedule. I mean, I know that I come on here, and I talk on live and I talk with you guys, clients, I mean, I was up till 2 a.m. working last night. I can see all the bags in my eyes. And I was first thing in the morning here at 8 a.m. because I woke up at 5 to get my kids to school. So I know that you guys sometimes see us and don't know that we have a human side, and we actually do need rest. Like I have to, log off work. Like I can't be taking calls in the night. I do have children. I do have a husband, and I do have life. So it's really hard, when we max out. I know everyone would prefer to speak to me, but I promise you that it really doesn't matter who you speak to, because we're all lawyers, and no matter what, any case that we take, goes through me, and I will review your case, before we submit it to make sure that there are no issues. So please call and speak to someone else if I'm not available, or if you can be patient, for my schedule, then you can also wait. Okay. Princess Shamu says she changed my life. Oh, yes, please tell them, it's good to, have someone else saying that, and definitely remember you and the journey, you went through, and I'm so proud of you and what you're doing with your life. For me, it's very meaningful when, we have clients whose life have been changed by getting a green card, and just to see what they're doing, later in life, going back to school, getting degrees, getting amazing jobs, marrying, one of our clients that we got him his conditional green card removed based on abuse. Then we got his naturalization. Then we filed for his wife. We brought his wife here. He just invited me to his 2 children's birthday party. And, for me, it's just really like full circle, like just seeing how just from this one person and over the years of continuing with us, and he's doing so well in his life. So it's always very rewarding, to see the outcome after, because, I know it ends for a lot of you once you get your green card, but for us, like it's always exciting to see the after, what they do with that, and stuff like that. She says, I wake up this morning and I looked at my green card. I have it now in my hand. Jesus is amazing. I'm so grateful. Yay. Okay, let me take more questions. Let's see what else we have. How long does it take to get a work permit and travel for VAWA after fingerprints is taken? So in the past, we would be able to average out, like, with fingerprints, but now we can't. Like, so from a timeline perspective, you're better off just counting from when you submitted your application, and I would say about 4 to 9 months. A lot of people are going to get it like between like the 5.5, 6.5 months, but really the window is 4 to 9 months. After 9 months, that would be a good time to do an inquiry if you've not received it. Okay. When could I file for my citizenship when I have an ongoing petition to remove conditions of my green card based on abuse? Without knowing your personal circumstances, I'm going to give just a general or broad answer to this. Assuming that your spouse has been a U.S. citizen for up to 3 years, assuming that you have a very strong abuse case with, lots of, evidence, and that the probability of you getting approved is high, you typically, and then of course, you have filed your taxes, you don't owe child support, you don't owe back taxes that you haven't paid, you have not traveled for more than 1.5 years of the 3 years, then you can file as early as 3 years from the date you received your green card. Well, technically, you can put in the application 90 days before the 3 year anniversary, but it's easier to just say 3 years. So you understand. Keep in mind, though, that if you've moved addresses, you have to wait till you've been in that address for 3 months before you put in the application because you want to make sure it goes to the right jurisdiction. Okay? Okay. Um, let's see. I'm looking for some. Please, can you marry after your VAWA approval while waiting for your I-45 approval? Just wait for your approval. If your VAWA has been approved, just wait. Just wait and get your adjustment. Typically it's not much longer. Most people will get it in like, 3 to 6 months. So I'm sure you can wait. Okay. And anyone that comes through the border marry an American citizen. You can marry anybody you want. This is America. In America, you can marry anyone you want. Whether you cross the border, whether you came with a visa, whether you were born here, it doesn't matter. You can marry whoever you want. Now, if the question is, can you get a green card? The answer is it depends. Yes, technically you can. However, if you cross the border and you're doing a marriage-based petition, you are going to need a hardship waiver, basically to forgive you for entering without inspection. And if that's approved, you're going to need to go back home, right? To your home country to finish the process. So that's the thing. However, let me talk real quick about Biden's PIP, which, as I'm sure many of you know, or if you've been following anything about immigration, is on hold. But real quick, a couple months ago, Biden basically passed a law that allowed, immigrants who entered into the country without inspection. It's important to note the difference. If you entered in with a visa or someone else's fake visa or someone else's fake passport, it means you entered with inspection. So I'm talking about people who crossed the border, who entered without anyone knowing they entered. The rule is supposed to allow those in that scenario who've been here since June of 2014. So 10 years from, June of this year, and who were married to a US citizen before June of 2024, apply for what we call parole in place, which would be your path to a green card. Right now, the courts have a temporary restraining order, which basically says, we're not going to approve these cases right now. We are going to allow you to continue taking in the applications. As of yesterday, they shifted the date. The deadline just passed. It was, early last week. So now they're allowing USCIS to continue to receive applications until November 5th. So even though they do receive your application, they cannot make a decision on the application or approve you of the application until they decide what they're doing with the case. We are hopeful that the decision will be in the affirmative, but I don't know. I think it's strategic that they picked November 5th. I mean, that's the day of the election. I think that these judges are waiting to see who wins the election. It's really unfortunate that this administration waited till the very end to do this, because it would have been better that he did this earlier, so that way many people would have, already gotten their status. But now it will all depend on, who's in office, because after November 5th, if, the current administration, if, VP Harris doesn't continue, most likely the previous administration is probably going to remove this, since that's what he's promised, mass deportation. So, it's really hard to say, with that. But otherwise, as I said, the other option is for consular processing. Can someone travel outside the USA with VAWA advanced parole while waiting for a U visa? I don't want to answer that question without knowing more about your personal situation, because I don't want to tell you you can travel and then you'll now be stuck. So, all right. Let me take one more question and then I got to jump off. Will the abuse go on the record of the spouse? Also, do you have to involve your spouse in this case? This is a good question. So the abuse does not go on the record of your spouse. VAWA is a confidential process. USCIS is not allowed to communicate with your spouse or acknowledge your spouse for the safety of the victim, and because doing that will stop people who are abused from, truly reporting that. It doesn't go on their record, and your spouse does not and should not, for your own safety, be involved in this process at all. At all. What else do I want to say about that? And typically, usually USCIS wants a safe address. If you're using a lawyer, a lot of times with this kinds of cases, the lawyer's address would be a safe address. So for people who still live with their abuser, especially the males come to your lawyer's, office. In our case, our office, and usually we will ask the client, is this a safe address? Can we send it here? So, sometimes clients will say, well, you can send to the last address you sent to me. But, for us, it's too risky not to ask. It's too risky not to ask because, immigrants move. They're still trying to get their lives together. So a lot of times they can move from one place to the other. Or sometimes people take back an abuser. So we never want to assume that, the address we sent it to 3 weeks ago is still a safe address. So it's always good, to check and make sure it's a safe address. Or if it's no longer a safe address for you, let's say you did it yourself, that you update USCIS so that they don't send something to your abuser and put you at risk. Okay, guys. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing day today. If I didn't get to your question, sorry about that. Definitely call and schedule a consultation. If it's family or humanitarian based, related, phone number is 407-995-6567. Also, you can send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. All right, guys. Bye.